Standing outside the gleaming Beverly Hills apartment complex, I watched the 21-year-old influencer Jake Sullivan toss me a filthy rag like I was his personal servant. "Wash my Lamborghini, sweetheart," he shouted, his phone camera capturing every second for his 50,000 live viewers. The bright yellow Aventador sat there like a golden trophy while he smirked at me. I didn't move an inch. "What are you, deaf?" he yelled louder, his voice echoing off the marble lobby walls. That's when the flatbed truck rumbled around the corner. The driver hopped out and walked straight to me. "Ma'am, is this the repo?" he asked professionally. I nodded without taking my eyes off Jake's suddenly pale face. "Yeah, he missed 2 payments. Take it back to my dealership." Let me back up and explain how I ended up in this mess. My name is Deborah, and 3 years ago my life looked completely different. I was married to Brandon, working in marketing for a tech startup, living in what I thought was our dream house in Pasadena. Then Brandon decided he needed to find himself with a 22-year-old yoga instructor, leaving me with a mountain of debt he'd hidden from me and our 7-year-old daughter, Emma. After the divorce papers were signed and the house was sold to pay off Brandon's gambling debts, I found myself starting over from scratch. That's when Carmen Rodriguez gave me a chance at Premium Auto Recovery. Carmen built her business from nothing after immigrating from El Salvador, and she saw something in me that I didn't even see in myself back then. "Repo work isn't glamorous," she told me during my interview, "but it's honest work, and sometimes you're the only thing standing between people and their poor decisions." Today's assignment seemed straightforward enough. Jake Sullivan's social media handle JakeyBoyOfficial owed $180,000 on his Lamborghini Aventador. He'd missed 2 payments of $3,200 each, and according to our records, he'd been dodging our calls for 6 weeks. His TikTok account boasted 2.8 million followers who watched him flaunt designer clothes, expensive restaurants, and that ridiculous yellow sports car. I'd done my homework before arriving at the Sunset Plaza luxury residences. Jake's content was exactly what you'd expect from someone who called himself a lifestyle guru and entrepreneur. Videos of him throwing money around, giving advice about hustling and living your best life, and constantly showing off that Lamborghini. What his followers didn't know was that he was drowning in debt. The apartment complex screamed money. Marble everything, a doorman in a pressed uniform, and valet parking that cost more per month than most people's rent. I pulled up in my company pickup truck, feeling slightly out of place among the Porsches and Mercedes, lined up like expensive jewelry. Jake was already outside, phone in hand, live streaming what he called "Day in the Life of a Millionaire." He wore a white Louis Vuitton shirt that probably cost more than my monthly groceries and sunglasses that could have paid Emma's school fees. His girlfriend, Madison Sterling, stood next to him, a 19-year-old aspiring model who treated everything like a photo opportunity. "Today we're going to show you how real ballers handle their rides," Jake announced to his camera, completely ignoring me as I approached with my clipboard and paperwork. The live stream viewer count sat at 50,000 and climbing. When he tossed me that rag and demanded I clean his car, I stayed professional. I dealt with worse attitudes than this spoiled kid's. "Mr. Sullivan, I'm Deborah from Premium Auto Recovery. I need to speak with you about your vehicle loan." He barely glanced at me. "Lady, I don't know what scam you're running, but I paid for this car in cash. Now either wash it or get lost before I call security." Madison giggled and filmed my reaction for her Instagram story. "Babe, she's probably just jealous that she can't afford nice things." I pulled out the repo notice and tried again. "Sir, you've missed 2 consecutive payments on your auto loan. I'm here to recover the vehicle on behalf of Premier Financial Services." That's when Jake's demeanor shifted slightly. His eyes flicked to the papers in my hand, then back to his phone screen. His audience was eating up the drama, flooding the chat with laughing emojis and comments about the crazy lady trying to take his car. "This is harassment," he declared loudly, playing to his viewers. "Some random woman shows up claiming she owns my Lamborghini. This is exactly the kind of jealousy you deal with when you're successful guys." The crowd of neighbors and curious onlookers was growing. Several people had their phones out, recording what they assumed was just another influencer publicity stunt. Jake was feeding off the attention, his voice getting louder and more dramatic with each passing minute. I remained calm and pulled out my phone to call the tow truck driver. "Hi, Tony. Yes, I'm at the location. The debtor is being uncooperative, but we have all the proper documentation." Jake's face went white when he heard the word debtor. Madison stopped filming for a second, confusion crossing her features. Wait, what? Jake grabbed for my phone. You can't just take someone's car, this is America. I stepped back, keeping my voice level. Mr. Sullivan, you signed a loan agreement with Premier Financial. You've defaulted on that agreement. I have a court order authorizing this repossession. The rumble of Tony's flatbed truck turning the corner was like thunder. Jake spun around his live stream, still running, and watched as the massive vehicle maneuvered into position behind his Lamborghini. Tony climbed out professional as always. He'd been doing this for 15 years and had seen every reaction in the book. Ma'am, is this the repo? Ma? I nodded, keeping my eyes on Jake's face. Yeah, he missed 2 payments. Take it back to my dealership. That's when Jake completely lost it. The tough guy influencer persona crumbled like wet cardboard. He started crying right there on camera, his voice cracking as he turned back to his phone. Guys, I need your help right now, he sobbed into the camera. This crazy woman is trying to steal my car. I swear I've been making my payments. Please, if you can donate anything at all, I'll pay you back, I promise. The live stream viewer count exploded to 80,000 as word spread across social media about the meltdown. Comments flooded in, some sympathetic, others cruel, but everyone was watching. Madison stepped away from him, clearly embarrassed by his public breakdown. Jake, what's going on? I thought you owned the car. I do own it, he wailed. This is just a misunderstanding. My parents cut me off last month because they said I was being irresponsible, but I've got income from my brand deals. I just need a little more time. The truth was finally coming out, one desperate confession at a time. As Tony began hooking up the Lamborghini to his flatbed, Jake's followers started a GoFundMe campaign that raised $12,000 in 30 minutes. But even his most devoted fans were beginning to ask questions in the comments. I watched this kid's entire world collapse in real time, broadcast to tens of thousands of people. Part of me felt sorry for him, but I'd learned not to let emotions interfere with my job. Too many people's livelihoods depended on me doing this work properly. What I didn't know was that this was just the beginning. Jake Sullivan's problems went way deeper than a missed car payment, and I was about to find myself in the middle of something much bigger and more dangerous than a simple repo job. While Tony secured the Lamborghini onto his flatbed, Jake became increasingly frantic. He pulled out his wallet and started counting cash, offering me everything he had. Look, I've got $800 right here, he said, waving the bills at me. Take it as a good faith payment and we can work something out. I've got a huge brand deal coming through next week. Madison was now filming everything for her own social media accounts, treating the situation like entertainment rather than her boyfriend's financial crisis. This is so crazy, she kept saying to her phone camera. You guys have to see this. I shook my head and continued documenting the repossession with my own photos. Mr. Sullivan, $800, doesn't cover $6,400 in missed payments, plus late fees and repo costs. Jake's livestream audience was having a field day. The comments section exploded with everything from marriage proposals to people calling him a fraud. Some viewers were sharing the GoFundMe link, while others were making memes about his tears. My lawyer is going to sue you for everything you're worth. Jake threatened, his voice still shaky from crying. You can't just take someone's car without proper notice. I pulled out a manila folder containing all the documentation. Mr. Sullivan, Premier Financial sent you 17 notices over the past 6 weeks. Certified mail, regular mail, email, and phone calls. You signed for 3 of the certified letters. His face went even paler. Behind us, Tony had the Lamborghini halfway up the flatbed, its bright yellow paint gleaming in the California sun. That's when my phone rang. Carmen's name flashed on the screen. Deborah, we have a problem, she said without preamble. Jake Sullivan filed a police report 2 hours ago claiming his Lamborghini was stolen. I felt my stomach drop. Carmen, I'm standing right here with all the proper paperwork. I know, but he's claiming the loan documents were forged. He's also saying you threatened him yesterday and demanded payment in cash or you'd destroy his career. Jake was still live streaming, but I caught him watching me during my phone call. Something in his expression told me he knew exactly what Carmen was telling me. I never spoke to this kid before today, I said into the phone. I believe you, but the police don't know that yet. Detective Chen is on her way to your location. Don't leave until she arrives. I hung up and looked at Jake, who was now smirking slightly despite his earlier breakdown. You filed a false police report. I don't know what you're talking about, he said, but his livestream viewers were catching on. Comments started flooding in asking why he was smiling if his car was being stolen. 20 minutes later, Detective Lisa Chen arrived in an unmarked sedan. She was a small woman in her 40s, with the kind of sharp eyes that missed nothing. Jake immediately turned on the charm for her. "Officer, thank God you're here. This woman showed up claiming I owe money on my car, but I paid cash for it 6 months ago. She's been harassing me for weeks." Detective Chen looked between Jake, me, and the Lamborghini, now fully loaded on Tony's truck. "Mr. Sullivan, you filed a report claiming your vehicle was stolen. Can you provide proof of ownership?" Jake's confidence faltered slightly. "Well, I have the keys. Registration and title, please." Jake fumbled around in his wallet, then claimed the documents were in his apartment. Detective Chen's expression suggested she'd heard this excuse before. While Jake went upstairs to supposedly retrieve his paperwork, I showed Detective Chen all of my documentation. Loan agreement, payment history, court order for repossession, and the certified mail receipts. "This all looks legitimate," she said, reviewing the papers, "but I have to investigate the complaint." Jake returned 20 minutes later, empty-handed. "I can't find the exact papers, but I'm calling my financial advisor right now. Warren Blackstone handles all my investments and paperwork." Detective Chen made notes while Jake called this Warren person. The conversation was brief and heated, ending with Jake yelling, "What do you mean the account is frozen?" Thomas Wright, the apartment complex manager, approached us with security footage from his tablet. "Excuse me, Detective, I couldn't help overhearing. We've had some concerns about Mr. Sullivan." The footage showed Jake moving his Lamborghini to different parking spots throughout the complex over the past month, sometimes in the middle of the night. "He's been trying to hide it from someone," Thomas explained. "We assumed it was an ex-girlfriend or something." Detective Chen studied the footage. "Mr. Sullivan, this behavior suggests you knew someone was looking for this vehicle." Jake's live stream was still running, but his viewer count had dropped to 30,000 as people lost interest in the increasingly obvious lies. "I was just protecting it from vandalism," Jake protested. "Do you know how much this car is worth?" "According to these loan documents, about $180,000, which Mr. Sullivan owes to Premier Financial," Detective Chen noted. That's when my phone rang again. Carmen's voice was tense. "Deborah, we just got a call from First National Bank. They're saying Jake Sullivan used the same Lamborghini as collateral for a loan with them, too." My heart sank. How is that possible? "It's not legal, that's for sure, but it gets worse. We've now heard from 4 different lenders who all claim to have liens on that same vehicle." I looked at Jake, who was still arguing with Detective Chen about property rights and harassment. This wasn't just a missed payment anymore, this was fraud. "Detective Chen," I interrupted, "I just learned that Mr. Sullivan may have used this vehicle as collateral for multiple loans with different financial institutions." Jake's face went white again. Madison, who had been filming everything, suddenly stopped and stared at her boyfriend. "Jake, what is she talking about?" Madison demanded. Detective Chen closed her notebook. "Mr. Sullivan, I think we need to have a longer conversation. Downtown." Jake's live stream finally ended as his phone battery died, but not before his remaining viewers witnessed him being asked to accompany Detective Chen for questioning. The last comment visible on the stream before it cut out was someone asking, "Is this dude about to get arrested?" As it turned out, that viewer was more right than they knew. Jake Sullivan wasn't just behind on his car payment. He was running a much bigger game, and I had accidentally stumbled into the middle of a federal investigation that would change everything. 3 hours later, I was sitting in the lobby of the Beverly Hills Police Department waiting for Detective Chen to finish her initial interview with Jake. Carmen had driven over from our office bringing additional documentation about our loan with Premier Financial. "This is bad, Deborah," Carmen said, spreading papers across the table between us. "I've been in this business for 20 years and I've never seen anything like this." She showed me faxes and emails that had been pouring in all afternoon. First National Bank claimed Jake owed them $90,000 on the Lamborghini. Pacific Coast Credit Union said he owed them $75,000. Desert Sun Financial insisted they had the primary lien for $120,000. "How does someone get loans from 5 different places for the same car?" I asked. "By forging documents and lying about existing liens," Carmen replied. "But there's more. I started looking into this Warren Blackstone character Jake mentioned." She pulled out her phone and showed me a LinkedIn profile. Warren Blackstone, age 43, claimed to be a financial strategist and investment advisor with offices in Los Angeles and Las Vegas. His photo showed a man in an expensive suit with slicked-back hair and a smile that looked like it belonged in a toothpaste commercial. "I called the address listed for his LA office," Carmen continued. "It's a mail forwarding service in a strip mall. The Las Vegas address doesn't exist. Detective Chen emerged from the interview room looking frustrated. Ms. Rodriguez, Ms. Deborah, could you join me for a minute? We followed her into a small conference room where Jake sat slumped in a chair, his earlier bravado completely gone. Without his phone and audience, he looked like what he really was, a scared kid in way over his head. Mr. Sullivan has been somewhat cooperative, Detective Chen began, but his story keeps changing. First he said he owned the car outright. Then he admitted to one loan. Now he's claiming he doesn't remember signing papers for any other loans. Jake looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes. I swear I don't remember half the stuff Warren had me sign. He said it was just paperwork for investment opportunities. Investment opportunities? Carmen asked sharply. Warren said I could leverage my social media following into real wealth. He had me sign a bunch of papers, said they were for business licenses and stuff. Detective Chen leaned forward. Mr. Sullivan, we're not just talking about car loans anymore. I've been in contact with the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit. They've been investigating Mr. Blackstone for several months. My stomach dropped. The FBI, Warren Blackstone, whose real name is Walter Black, has been running a sophisticated fraud operation using social media influencers as unwitting accomplices, Detective Chen explained. Mr. Sullivan isn't his only victim, but he might be the key to bringing down the entire operation. Jake started crying again. I never meant to hurt anyone. Warren said everything was legal. He said I was just monetizing my personal brand. Detective Chen showed us a thick file folder. Mr. Black has been recruiting young influencers for 3 years. He convinces them to take out multiple loans using the same collateral, then uses their social media presence to sell fraudulent investment opportunities to their followers. Carmen and I exchanged glances. This was way beyond anything we'd ever dealt with. The investment scams are where the real money is. Detective Chen continued. Mr. Sullivan here has been promoting something called Jakey Boy's Crypto Academy to his followers. People pay $1,500 for a course that doesn't exist. Jake's head was in his hands now. Warren handled all of that. I just read the scripts he wrote for me. I thought it was real. Detective Chen pulled out her laptop and showed us Jake's social media accounts. Video after video of him standing next to expensive cars and promising viewers they could live like kings if they just followed his investment advice. We estimate that over 500 people have sent money to accounts controlled by Mr. Black using Mr. Sullivan's endorsement. The total loss is approaching $2.4 million. I felt sick. $2.4 million, spread across 12 states, single mothers, college students, people trying to pay medical bills. They trusted Mr. Sullivan because he seemed successful and genuine. Carmen shook her head. Those poor families. There's more, Detective Chen said. Ms. Deborah, your mother Martha sent $15,000 to one of these fake investment programs last month. The room started spinning. My mother had invested her savings with this fraud. How do you know about my mother? We've been monitoring the victim accounts. When your name came up in connection with today's repossession, we cross-referenced it with our database. Jake looked up at me with horror. Your mom was one of the people who got scammed. Oh God, I'm so sorry. I wanted to hit him. My mother had been struggling since my father's death 2 years ago. $15,000 was probably most of her savings. Where's my mother's money? I demanded. Detective Chen sighed. We're trying to trace it, but Mr. Black has been moving funds through multiple offshore accounts. Most of the money appears to be gone. That's when Agent Sarah Mitchell from the FBI arrived. She was a tall woman in her 30s with short brown hair and the kind of presence that immediately commanded respect. Mr. Sullivan, Agent Mitchell said, sitting down across from Jake. We've been watching you for 6 months. Your friend Warren Black doesn't know it yet, but we've been intercepting his communications. She opened a briefcase and pulled out printed emails. These are messages between Mr. Black and his other associates. They've been planning to frame you for the entire operation if things went wrong. Jake's face went white as he read the printouts. They were going to blame everything on me. Mr. Black has been setting you up as the fall guy from day one. That's why he encouraged you to put your name and face on everything while he stayed in the background. Carmen leaned forward. Agent Mitchell, what does this mean for the repossession? The vehicle is evidence in a federal fraud case now. We'll need to impound it until the investigation is complete. But don't worry about your company's losses, Ms. Rodriguez. Victim restitution will be handled through the asset forfeiture program. Agent Mitchell turned back to Jake. Mr. Sullivan, Mr. Black doesn't know we're closing in on him. If you're willing to cooperate fully, we might be able to recover some of the money he's stolen. Jake nodded eagerly. I'll do whatever you need. I want to make this right. Good. because we're going to need you to make one more phone call to Warren, and this time we're going to be listening." As Agent Mitchell explained the FBI's plan to use Jake as bait to catch Warren Black, I realized that my simple car repossession had accidentally triggered the takedown of a massive criminal operation. But I also realized that my family was now caught in the middle of something dangerous, and Warren Black still had no idea the FBI was closing in on him. The FBI's plan was elegant in its simplicity. Jake would call Warren and tell him about the repo incident, making it sound like a close call, but nothing more. Meanwhile, federal agents would trace the call and monitor Warren's response. We gathered in a secure conference room at the FBI's Los Angeles field office. Agent Mitchell had Jake practice his lines while technicians set up recording equipment. Remember, Agent Mitchell coached, "You're scared but not suspicious. Warren thinks you're just a dumb kid who got lucky. Play into that." Jake nodded nervously. His hands shook as he dialed Warren's number on a secure phone line. "Warren, thank God you answered," Jake said, his voice convincingly panicked. "Dude, the repo people showed up today during my live stream." Warren's voice came through the speakers. He sounded calm, almost amused. "Did they take the car?" "Yeah, but I convinced them it was a misunderstanding. My followers raised enough money to cover the payments, so I'm going to get it back tomorrow." "Good boy. See how easy that was? Your audience loves to save their hero." Agent Mitchell was typing notes, while other agents monitored tracking equipment. Warren's call was coming from a location in Manhattan Beach about 30 miles south of us. "Warren." "I'm worried, though," Jake continued. "That repo lady seemed to know about the other loans. What if she starts asking questions?" There was a pause. "What exactly did she say?" "Something about multiple liens on the same vehicle. I played dumb, but what if she reports it?" Warren's tone shifted slightly. "Jake, listen to me very carefully. We may need to accelerate our timeline. Can you meet me tonight?" Agent Mitchell shook her head vigorously at Jake, who stayed on script. "Tonight I've got dinner plans with Madison. Cancel them. This is important. I'll text you an address." The call ended, and Agent Mitchell immediately started coordinating with other units. "We've got him. Manhattan Beach PD will have eyes on his location within 10 minutes. While the FBI mobilized their operation, Carmen and I drove back to her office to deal with the insurance paperwork and victim statements. The reality of what had happened was starting to sink in. "Deborah," Carmen said, as we sat in her office, "your mother isn't the only one. I've been getting calls all afternoon from other victims who heard about the investigation on the news." She showed me a growing list of names and phone numbers. 17 people so far, all local, all saying they invested money based on Jake's recommendations. I read through the list, recognizing some of the names. Mrs. Patterson from my neighborhood, Carlos, who worked at Emma's school. These were real people in my community who had trusted a kid with a fancy car and a smooth sales pitch. "The total local losses are over $300,000, Carmen continued. "These people mortgaged their homes, cashed out retirement accounts, borrowed from family members." My phone rang. It was Brandon, my ex-husband. "Deborah, what the hell have you gotten yourself into?" he demanded without saying hello. "Emma's school called me. Parents are talking about you being involved with some FBI investigation." "I'm not involved, Brandon. I was just doing my job." "Your job?" Deborah. Channel 7 News just ran a story about you and some influencer fraud case. They showed our daughter's school. This is exactly what I was worried about when you took that ridiculous repo job. I felt my temper rising. "Ridiculous repo job? That job kept Emma fed and housed while you figured out your midlife crisis." "Don't make this about me. I'm calling my lawyer. This kind of media attention could be damaging to Emma's development." He hung up before I could respond. Carmen looked at me sympathetically. "Ex-husband problems. He smells an opportunity to cause trouble. Brandon's been looking for an excuse to challenge our custody arrangement ever since I started making decent money." My phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. "Miss Deborah, this is Warren Blackstone. We need to talk. There are things about Jake Sullivan you don't know. Meet me at Griffith Observatory tonight at 8. Come alone or your family will suffer the consequences." I showed the message to Carmen, who immediately called Agent Mitchell. "He's panicking," Agent Mitchell said over speakerphone. "We've been monitoring his communications and he knows we're closing in. This confirms he sees you as a threat." "Why would he see me as a threat? I'm just a repo agent." "Because you're the one person in this whole mess who can't be bought or scared off. Jake folded the minute we applied pressure. His other victims are too financially desperate to fight back. But you've got nothing to gain by helping him and you're too stubborn to disappear." Carmen laughed despite the tension. "She's got that right," Agent Mitchell continued. "We're going to use this meeting to our advantage, but we need you to wear a wire. Warren Black is desperate enough to try something stupid. 2 hours later, I was sitting in my car outside Griffith Observatory, wearing a recording device that felt like it weighed 50 pounds. FBI agents were positioned throughout the area, but I still felt completely alone when Warren Black approached my car. He looked exactly like his LinkedIn photo-expensive suit, perfect hair, and that used car salesman's smile. But there was something dangerous in his eyes that photos couldn't capture. "Ms. Deborah," he said, sliding into my passenger seat without invitation. "Thank you for coming. You threaten my family. Talk fast." Warren laughed. "Direct. I appreciate that. Here's the situation. Jake Sullivan is a useful idiot who got caught. The FBI thinks they're smart, but they have no idea how deep this operation goes." He pulled out a thick envelope. "There's $50,000 in cash here. All you have to do is disappear for a few weeks. Take a vacation with your daughter. When you come back, this will all be over. And if I don't take your money," Warren's smile disappeared, "then I release these photos to every news outlet in Los Angeles." He showed me pictures on his phone. They were surveillance photos of me entering a pawn shop 6 months ago during the worst part of my divorce, when I had to sell my wedding ring to pay Emma's school fees. "Timestamps show these were taken last week," Warren said. "The story writes itself. Desperate repo agent takes bribes from criminal targets. Your ex-husband will have full custody by next month, and you'll never work in recovery again." I stared at the photos, feeling sick. They were real, just misdated. But they would be convincing enough to destroy my reputation and my custody case. "You've been watching me. I've been watching everyone connected to this investigation. Insurance policy." Warren leaned closer. "Take the money, Deborah. Disappear. Otherwise, I'll destroy your life so completely that you'll wish you'd never heard the name Jake Sullivan." That's when I realized something that Warren had missed. The pawn shop in the photos had security cameras, and I had receipts with accurate timestamps. More importantly, the FBI was recording every word of our conversation. "Warren," I said, looking him directly in the eye, "you made a mistake." "What mistake?" I smiled. "You assumed I was as weak as everyone else you've been manipulating." Warren's face changed as he realized something was wrong. That's when FBI agents surrounded my car, and Warren Black's empire began crumbling in real time. Warren Black tried to run, but Agent Mitchell and 3 other FBI agents had him surrounded before he made it 10 feet from my car. As they cuffed him, he kept shouting about his rights and demanding a lawyer, but the fight had gone out of him. "Warren Black, you're under arrest for wire fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy to commit financial crimes," Agent Mitchell announced. "You have the right to remain silent." While Warren was being processed, Agent Mitchell played back portions of our recorded conversation for the other agents. His threats against my family, the attempted bribe, and most importantly, his admission that he'd been running a much larger operation than the FBI had initially suspected. "This recording is going to help us get warrants for his offshore accounts," Agent Mitchell explained, as we sat in the FBI field office 2 hours later. "But we've also discovered something else." She opened a laptop and showed me bank records. "Warren's been moving money through accounts in the Cayman Islands, but he made a critical error. He used the same shell companies for multiple fraud schemes." The screen displayed a complex web of financial transactions, connecting Warren to similar operations in Florida, Texas, and Nevada. "We estimate he's stolen over $10 million from victims across the country over the past 3 years." Carmen whistled low. $10 million? Jake Sullivan was just one of 12 influencers Warren was using as frontmen, Agent Mitchell continued. But Jake's operation was the largest and most visible, which is why it attracted our attention. My phone rang. It was Detective Chen. "Deborah, I wanted to update you on the local investigation. We executed a search warrant on Jake Sullivan's apartment an hour ago." "What did you find?" "Boxes of forged documents, multiple fake IDs, and a laptop full of victim information. But the most interesting thing was a handwritten journal where Jake documented everything Warren made him do." Agent Mitchell leaned in. "What kind of documentation?" Detective Chen's voice came through the speakerphone. "Names, dates, amounts stolen, fake business registrations. Jake kept detailed records apparently because Warren told him it was for business planning purposes." "That kid might have just saved this entire investigation," Agent Mitchell muttered. Over the next several hours, the scope of Warren's operation became clearer. He'd been recruiting young people with social media followings, helping them create fake personas of wealth and success, then using their credibility to sell fraudulent investment opportunities to their audiences. The pattern was always the same target: working-class families with promises of easy wealth collect their money through untraceable digital payments, then disappear when people started asking questions. The influencers took the fall while Warren moved on to the next scheme. Your mother wasn't randomly targeted, Agent Mitchell explained. Warren's team specifically researched the families of people connected to his operations. They found out she was your mother and thought they could use her investment as leverage against you if needed. I felt a cold anger building in my chest. He deliberately targeted my family. Financial predators always look for personal connections they can exploit. But in this case, it backfired. Your mother's investment created a paper trail that led us directly to Warren's primary money laundering operation. Agent Mitchell showed me transaction records. Your mother's $15,000 was deposited into the same Cayman Islands account Warren used for his personal expenses. We can trace every dollar. Carmen leaned forward. Does this mean Deborah's mother will get her money back? Not just her mother. We've frozen accounts containing over $4.7 million in stolen funds. The asset forfeiture process will take time, but most victims should recover their losses. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma. Mom, kids at school are saying you're famous. Are you really on the news? I showed the message to Agent Mitchell, who smiled. You might want to prepare for some media attention. This story is going to be big news. I just want my life to go back to normal. Deborah, Carmen said gently, I don't think your life is going back to normal. I think it's going to get much better. Agent Mitchell nodded. We'd like to offer you a consulting position with the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit. Your insights into how these scams work from a victim's perspective could help us prevent future crimes. Before I could respond, my phone rang again. This time it was Brandon. Deborah, I saw the news. They're saying you helped the FBI catch some major criminal. Brandon, I just did my job. Look, I wanted to apologize for what I said earlier. I didn't understand what was really happening. I could hear something different in his voice. Respect, maybe. I'm withdrawing the custody challenge, he continued. Emma needs to be with her mother. You're doing important work. After I hung up, Carmen was grinning at me. Well, that's a plot twist I didn't see coming. Agent Mitchell's phone rang and she answered it immediately. Mitchell here. She listened for a moment, then smiled. Outstanding work. Yes, bring him in. She hung up and turned to us. Warren Black's partner in the Cayman Islands just got arrested trying to board a flight to Brazil. He had $3 million in cash and a suitcase full of fake passports. Partner, I asked. Jonathan Hayes, Warren's money laundering specialist. Turns out our boy Warren was planning to disappear tonight after cleaning out all the accounts. Your repo job yesterday forced them to move up their timeline, but they weren't quite ready to run. Carmen shook her head. So Deborah accidentally prevented them from stealing millions more dollars. That's exactly what happened. If this had gone on for another month, Warren would have vanished with everything and none of these victims would have ever seen a penny. Agent Mitchell stood up and extended her hand to me. Ms. Deborah, on behalf of the Federal Bureau of Investigation and over 800 victims across the country, thank you. As I shook her hand, I realized that my worst day as a repo agent had accidentally become the best thing that had ever happened to hundreds of families I'd never met. But more than that, it had shown me that I was stronger than I'd ever imagined. The kid who threw a rag at me and called me deaf was sitting in federal custody facing 3 years in minimum security prison. Warren Black was looking at 15 years in maximum security and millions in restitution payments. And somehow, a single mother from Pasadena had helped bring down a criminal empire. But the story wasn't over yet. 3 months later, I sat in a federal courthouse in downtown Los Angeles, watching Warren Black get sentenced to 15 years in federal prison. He'd aged 20 years in the past few months, his expensive suits replaced by an orange jumpsuit, his arrogant smirk gone forever. Judge Patricia Harrison read the charges: wire fraud, money laundering, conspiracy to commit financial crimes, and identity theft across 12 states. Mr. Black, your criminal enterprise destroyed families, ruined retirements, and preyed upon the most vulnerable members of society. Warren's lawyer had tried to negotiate a plea deal, but the FBI's evidence was overwhelming. The journal Jake had kept the recorded conversations. The financial records and testimony from over 200 victims had built an airtight case. The court orders restitution in the amount of $9.2 million to be paid to victims through the Federal Asset Forfeiture Program, Judge Harrison continued. The defendants' assets, including properties in Beverly Hills, Las Vegas, and the Cayman Islands, will be liquidated to fund victim compensation. I looked across the courtroom at Jake Sullivan, who was scheduled for sentencing the following week. His transformation had been remarkable. Gone was the arrogant influencer with the fake smile. In his place sat a young man who'd spent the past 3 months writing personal apology letters to every single victim. After Warren was led away in shackles, Agent Mitchell found me in the hallway. "Deborah, I have some news about your mother's case." Martha had been one of the first victims to receive full restitution. The FBI had traced her $15,000 to a Warren's personal account where it had been earning interest for months. She'd actually gotten back $16,200. "Your mother wants to invest some of her recovered money in a new business venture," Agent Mitchell said with a smile. "Something about a repo company run by someone she trusts." I laughed. Over the past few months, I'd been thinking about starting my own recovery business, specializing in cases involving financial fraud. Carmen was planning to retire next year and had offered to sell me premium auto recovery at a generous price. "There's something else," Agent Mitchell continued. "The Bureau would like to formalize our consulting arrangement. We're creating a new financial crimes victim advocacy position, and we'd like you to head it up. The job would involve training federal agents to recognize fraud patterns, working with victims, to gather evidence, and helping other recovery specialists identify suspicious cases." It was everything I'd learned to do over the past year, but on a national scale. I'd be helping people like my mother, people exactly like your mother, working families who get targeted by predators like Warren Black. Before I could answer, Carmen appeared with a huge grin on her face. "Deborah, you need to see this," she said, showing me her phone. It was a news article titled, "Local Hero Helps FBI Recover Millions for Fraud Victims." The photo showed me standing next to the repossessed Lamborghini, which was being auctioned by the federal government to fund victim restitution. "The car sold for $230,000 yesterday," Carmen announced. "Every penny goes to the victims." Agent Mitchell's phone buzzed with a text message. She read it and smiled. "Warren's partner Jonathan Hayes just pleaded guilty in Miami. He's cooperating fully and provided information about similar operations in 6 other states. Your case is helping us shut down an entire network of financial predators." As we walked out of the courthouse, I thought about how much my life had changed since that morning in Beverly Hills. Emma was proud to tell her classmates that her mom was working with the FBI. My relationship with my mother was stronger than ever. Even Brandon had started treating me with genuine respect. But most importantly, I discovered that I was good at something that mattered, really mattered. The next week, Jake Sullivan received his sentence 3 years in minimum security prison, followed by 5 years of supervised probation, during which he would work with federal authorities to educate young people about financial fraud. "Mr. Sullivan," Judge Harrison said during his sentencing, "your cooperation with federal investigators likely prevented millions of dollars in additional losses. The court recognizes your genuine remorse and your efforts to make amends." Jake had used his remaining social media presence to warn his followers about fraud schemes and had raised $50,000 for a victims' compensation fund through legitimate sponsored content. Madison Sterling, his former girlfriend, had written a tell-all article about dating someone involved in financial crimes. She'd donated her writing fees to the compensation fund and was now studying business ethics in college. After Jake's sentencing, he approached me in the courthouse hallway. "Miss Deborah, I wanted to thank you." "Thank me, Jake, I repossessed your car." He smiled, the first genuine smile I'd seen from him. "You saved my life. If you hadn't shown up that day, I would have kept going deeper into Warren's schemes until I ended up like him. I was already so lost that I didn't even realize I was hurting people." Jake had spent his time in minimum security, teaching financial literacy classes to other inmates, and working on a book about how young people could build real wealth without falling for get-rich-quick schemes. "I'm planning to work in fraud prevention when I get out," he continued. "Agent Mitchell said there might be opportunities to work with your new program. Jake, if you're serious about helping people, there will always be a place for you to do that work." 6 months later, I was standing in the office of Integrity Recovery Solutions, the business I'd built with Carmen as my partner and mentor. We specialized in asset recovery cases involving financial crimes, and we worked closely with law enforcement agencies across California. Emma's school picture sat on my desk next to a photo of our team, Carmen, myself, 2 other recovery specialists, and a victim advocate. We'd helped recover over $3 million in stolen assets and had assisted federal agencies in dozens of fraud investigations. My phone rang. It was Agent Mitchell. "Deborah, we've got a case in Phoenix that looks exactly like the Warren Black operation. Young influencer luxury cars, investment scams, targeting working families. Can your team be there tomorrow? I looked out my office window at the parking lot where that yellow Lamborghini used to sit. In its place was my new company vehicle, a practical pickup truck with Integrity Recovery Solutions painted on the side. "Agent Mitchell will be on the first flight out." As I hung up the phone, I realized that what had started as the worst day of my career had become the foundation for the most meaningful work I'd ever done. Sometimes the worst moments in our lives are actually the beginning of our best chapters. And somewhere in minimum security, federal prison, Jake Sullivan was probably teaching another financial literacy class, helping other people avoid the mistakes that had nearly destroyed his life. Justice, it turned out, wasn't just about punishment. Sometimes it was about second chances and the opportunity to turn your biggest mistake into your greatest contribution. 1 year after that confrontation in Beverly Hills, I found myself back at the Sunset Plaza luxury residences. But this time, I wasn't there for a repossession. I was there to speak at a financial fraud prevention seminar hosted by the apartment complex's Residents Association. The irony wasn't lost on me. The same building where Jake Sullivan had humiliated me on live television was now inviting me to educate their residents about protecting themselves from financial predators. Thomas Wright, the complex manager who had provided security footage during the investigation, introduced me to the 43 residents gathered in the community room. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Deborah Williams, founder of Integrity Recovery Solutions and consultant to the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit." As I stood at the podium, I could see the spot where Jake's yellow Lamborghini used to be parked. Now it housed a Tesla belonging to a tech executive who'd learned about investment fraud the hard way. "A year ago, I came to this building to repossess a car," I began. "I was just doing my job, following routine procedures, expecting a routine outcome. What I discovered instead was that sometimes our worst moments can become our greatest opportunities." The audience was mostly wealthy professionals, but they listened intently as I explained how financial predators specifically target successful people who believe their wealth makes them immune to scams. "Warren Black didn't just steal from working families," I continued. "He also defrauded several residents of this very building. Dr. Patricia Chen lost $40,000. Marketing executive David Park invested $60,000 in Jake's fake cryptocurrency program. Even wealth and education don't protect you from sophisticated fraud." After the presentation, Dr. Chen approached me. "Ms. Williams, I wanted to thank you personally. Getting my money back through the victim restitution program allowed me to keep my medical practice open." These conversations had become the most rewarding part of my new career. Every recovered dollar represented a family that didn't lose their home, a student who could stay in college, a retiree who could keep their dignity. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma. "Mom, I finished my school project about your work. I got an A+. Can't wait to show you tonight." Emma was now 8 and had become something of a celebrity at her school. Her classmates thought it was incredibly cool that her mother worked with the FBI and caught bad guys. Her teacher had asked her to present her project about financial fraud prevention to younger students. Carmen appeared at my side holding 2 cups of coffee. "How did it go?" "Better than expected. 3 people asked about hiring us for asset recovery cases, and the complex wants us to do quarterly seminars." Carmen smiled. "Speaking of business," Agent Mitchell called. "That Phoenix case we worked last month just resulted in 12 arrests and $4.6 million in recovered assets." Integrity Recovery Solutions had grown beyond anything I'd imagined. We now had 8 employees, including Jake Sullivan, who'd been released early for good behavior and exceptional cooperation with federal authorities. Jake had transformed completely during his time in prison. He'd earned a bachelor's degree in business ethics through a correspondence program, completed addiction counseling for his social media dependence, and written a book about financial fraud that had become required reading at several universities. "Ms. Deborah," came a familiar voice behind me. I turned to see Jake approaching with a young woman I didn't recognize. His appearance was dramatically different from the arrogant kid I'd met in this same building. Gone was the designer clothing and flashy jewelry. Instead, he wore a simple button-down shirt and jeans, and his expression was serious, but genuine. "Jake, how are you?" "I'm doing well. I wanted you to meet Sarah Chen, Dr. Chen's daughter. She's starting college this fall, and she wants to study financial crimes prevention." Sarah shook my hand enthusiastically. "Ms. Williams, your work inspired me to change my major. I want to help protect people the way you helped protect my mother." This was happening more often. Young people who'd been affected by the Warren Black case were choosing careers in law enforcement, victim advocacy, and financial regulation. Jake had started a nonprofit organization that provided free financial literacy education to high school students. "I have some news," Jake said. "The book is being adapted into a documentary series for Netflix. They want to interview you about the investigation." I shook my head. "Jake, this is your story to tell." "No, Miss Deborah, this is our story. Warren targeted you personally because he recognized that you couldn't be bought or intimidated. You showed me what real strength looks like." Carmen nudged me. "Deborah, you should consider it. Think about how many people could learn from what happened." As we walked back to our cars, I reflected on how dramatically my life had changed. The divorce that had seemed like the end of the world had actually freed me to discover work I was passionate about. The financial struggles that had nearly broken me had given me empathy for fraud victims. Even Brandon's betrayal had taught me to recognize my own strength. My mother, Martha, had used her recovered investment money to help fund a scholarship program for single mothers returning to school. She'd also moved closer to us and had become Emma's favorite babysitter and homework helper. Emma ran to greet me when I got home, her school project clutched in her small hands. "Mom, look what I made." Her poster board was titled, "My Hero, How My Mom Helps People." It featured photos of our office newspaper clippings about the Warren Black case and a drawing of me standing next to a car with a superhero cape. "Emma, this is incredible. Mrs. Johnson said I should enter it in the state competition. She thinks I could win." As I helped Emma with her homework that evening, she asked me a question that stopped me cold. "Mom, do you think Jake is a good guy or a bad guy?" I thought carefully before answering. "I think Jake made some very bad choices that hurt a lot of people, but I also think he's learned from those mistakes and is working hard to help people now. Sometimes people can change if they really want to. Like how you changed from being sad after Daddy left to being happy helping people. Children see things so clearly sometimes." "Yes, exactly like that." Emma smiled and returned to her math homework, but her question stayed with me. Change was possible, but it required recognizing your mistakes, accepting responsibility for them, and committing to do better. Warren Black had never shown genuine remorse for his crimes. Even during sentencing, he'd blamed his victims for being gullible and insisted he'd provided valuable financial education. He would likely spend the rest of his life angry at the world for holding him accountable. Jake, on the other hand, had faced his mistakes head-on. His transformation wasn't just about avoiding punishment. It was about becoming someone who could live with himself and contribute positively to society. The next morning, Agent Mitchell called with exciting news. "Deborah, the Justice Department wants to expand your victim advocacy program nationally. We're talking about offices in 10 major cities and a budget of $50 million over 5 years. The program would train victim advocates across the country, create standardized procedures for financial fraud investigations, and establish support networks for recovery specialists like myself. It would mean a lot to travel," Agent Mitchell continued. "But you'd be helping thousands of people and probably preventing millions of dollars in losses." I looked around my office at the photos of recovered assets, victim testimonials, and newspaper articles about our cases. 2 years ago, I was a struggling single mother working a job that barely paid the bills. Now I had the opportunity to create a national program that could protect families across America. "Agent Mitchell, when do we start?" 3 months later, I stood before a Senate subcommittee on financial crimes testifying about the need for better victim advocacy programs. Emma sat in the gallery with my mother, watching her mom speak to senators about protecting American families. "Senators, financial fraud isn't just about money," I testified. "It's about trust, dignity, and the American dream. When predators like Warren Black target working families, they're not just stealing dollars, they're stealing hope." The program was approved unanimously, and Integrity Recovery Solutions became the model for similar operations across the country. Jake's documentary premiered 6 months later. The Influencer Fraud: How One Repo Agent Brought Down a Criminal Empire won 3 Emmy nominations and sparked national conversations about social media ethics and financial literacy education. During the premiere, Jake found me at the after-party. "Ms. Deborah, I have something to tell you. I'm getting married next month." "Jake, that's wonderful. Anyone I know?" He smiled. "Sarah Chen, Dr. Chen's daughter. We've been working together on the financial literacy nonprofit, and we fell in love somewhere between teaching budgeting classes and writing grant proposals." I thought about the beautiful symmetry of that relationship. Jake marrying the daughter of one of his fraud victims, both of them now dedicated to preventing others from making the same mistakes. "We want to name our first child after you if it's a girl," Jake continued. "You saved both our families in different ways." As I drove home that night, I thought about the question I'd been asked to address in my final call to action. What would I want people to remember about this story? The answer came to me clearly. Sometimes the worst things that happen to us are actually the beginning of the best things that will happen to us. Sometimes standing up for what's right feels impossible, but it's always worth it. Sometimes the people who hurt us can change and become allies in helping others. Most importantly, every person has the power to choose integrity over easy money, truth over convenient lies, and helping others over helping only themselves. I think about that arrogant kid who threw me a dirty rag and called me deaf. I think about the desperate man who threatened my family to protect his criminal empire. And I think about the scared single mother who just wanted to do her job and take care of her daughter. None of us knew that day in Beverly Hills that we were about to change each other's lives forever. But that's how life works sometimes. The moments that seem ordinary can become extraordinary if we're brave enough to stand up for what's right. The yellow Lamborghini is long gone, sold at auction to fund victim restitution. But the lessons from that day continue to ripple outward, protecting families, changing lives, and proving that sometimes the best way to help yourself is to help others. Have you ever had a moment when standing up for what's right felt impossible, but turned out to be the best decision you ever made? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. Your courage might inspire someone else who's facing their own difficult choice. If this story reminded you that integrity always wins, in the end, please give it a thumbs up and share it with someone who might need that reminder today. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories about real people making a real difference in the world. Thank you for taking this journey with me. And remember, you're stronger than you think, braver than you feel, and more capable of changing the world than you've ever imagined. Sometimes all it takes is showing up and doing the right thing, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Until next time, keep fighting the good fight.